So let's get to the story of Snow White. So Jonathan and David are very good friends because they both really love God. But now I'm going to show you how a friend can become a frenemy. And often, there's lots of studies on this, it often occurs when a person becomes envious or jealous. And I'm going to kind of use those two terms interchangeably. I know there is some technical difference between the two, but what percentage of Americans each year are envious or jealous, get envious or jealous of someone else? What do you think? What percentage of Americans each year? Someone said 100%. It is 80%. 80% of Americans get extremely jealous or envy of someone each year. But that also means that there are people who are probably envious and jealous of you. So this sermon is to both groups of people. So I'm going to speak to the 80% of you that are jealous or envious of someone else, or you know someone is jealous or envious of you in your life. Now, the young are more envious about two things. What do you think young adults are envious about the most? It isn't money, believe it or not. It is romantic. They get jealous if their friend is romantically successful, they call it. Okay? So, oh, my friend got a girlfriend, and I don't have one yet. Okay, so romantic interest, and what is the second one? The second one is kind of, I'll tell you what the top two is. The third one, I think, is educational attainment. You know, I've got a master's, I got a bachelor's, stuff like that. But the number one is looks. People, and that's why, you know, it's kind of funny on Facebook, everyone's snapping selfies, but they're, you know, look at me. I want everyone to tell me how beautiful I am or how handsome I am or whatever. So number one that would get envious, oh, that girl, she's, you know, she's so pretty, she makes me sick and I hate her. Okay. So how about older people? What are they envious about? It isn't health. But now, this survey was to older people that were like in their 50s. So I'm thinking health. That's why we're all envious of Margie, I guess. Is Margie here? Yeah. Margie, we all envy you. Yeah, energy. So let me think. The two things is occupational success and finances now, and money, okay? So number one creator of envy among people is social media. So let's see the story here of Snow White. Starting in verse 5. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, King Saul, sent David on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns. See, it's these women. The women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing and joyful songs and with timbrels and lyres. And they danced and they sang, and this is the latest contemporary Christian music. And here's what they're singing. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. Okay? Now, but it is not true. David has not killed tens of thousands yet. He's just a young boy, and he's just starting out. But the women are like, you know, they weren't trying to show disrespect to King Saul. King Saul was more into himself. He's the one looking in the mirror every day going, who's the fairest of them all? Who's the mighty warrior? And the mirror would say, you are King Saul. And he'd be like, I'm going to build another monument for myself, which we've seen in the past. Okay? But now, these women have kind of, they must kind of like David. Verse 8. So when Saul hears this, it says, Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought. But me, with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. Some versions will have he kept a jealous eye on David or an envious eye on David. So, King Saul, who's the greatest? You are, King Saul, you are. Until one day, King Saul looks at the mirror, who's the greatest? And the women are, David's killed his tens of thousands. And he is angry. So, these are the phases you go through when you become envious or jealous of someone else. Phase number 1 is in verse 8, Saul is very angry. So when you become jealous or envious of someone, even if they don't mean it, David didn't mean any of this. David's an innocent, but Saul is angry. So, you work at a company. Let's just say you're a salesperson for sake of argument. You've put in 30 years of sales. You're not too bad. You've been around the corner. You're the top dog at the company selling things. When the new whippersnapper gets hired, and he's only in his 20s, and suddenly he's landed a couple big accounts and doing some amazing sales. And everyone at the job is like, wow, this kid's amazing. Look at the sales he's getting. And you get angry. You go home to the wife, the husband, you're like, who does he think he is? He just started. I've been in this company 30 years. And so he's had a couple lucky breaks, and he's sure he made some good commission. But, I know the ropes. I've been here. I've been thinking I'll be the next manager, but the way he's going, they're going to probably make him the manager. Everyone's singing about how great he is. And you with me? So you got that anger going. All right. Now, you got this jealous envy going. So let me give you a verse. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. Paul writes that in your anger, do not sin. And do not let the sun go down on your anger, or you will give the devil a foothold in your life. That's Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. So God says, and just so you understand clearly, jealousy and anger jealousy and envy is a form of anger. Okay? That girl is so pretty. You're angry. Why am I not pretty? That's pretty. You're angry. Okay? And anger, by the way, leads to murder. Jesus says if you're angry at your brother, it leads to trouble. So God says you got to take care of it. You got to deal with it during the day. That envy, that jealousy, you got to give it to the Lord. If you don't give it to the Lord and you go to sleep, you give Satan a foothold in your life to influence you. So look what happens with Saul. Verse 10, he's angry, he's jealous. Verse 10, what do we read? The next day, he didn't deal with it. The next day, an evil spirit from God came forcefully on Saul. So what happens when you go to bed angry? You go to bed jealous, envious of someone. Satan has a foothold in your life. He was prophesying in his house. So Saul is prophesying in his house while David was playing the lyre, as he usually did, because they're friends. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David eluded him how many times? Twice. So here's what's very strange. It says that Saul, this evil spirit, starts speaking to Saul's mind. And Saul begins to prophesy. Now, the word in the Hebrew is prophesy, but you have to understand, you can prophesy by the Spirit of God, and you can prophesy by a demon. That's why some versions, you'll see number 3 here, there are some versions, I took this out of another Bible version, he began to rave in his house like a madman. So that's demonic prophesying. You go to sleep, you're mad, you're jealous about that coworker that landed that big contract. You wake up in the morning and you've given the devil a foothold and you go, oh, I'm so mad, I need to do, and Satan's whispering to you, I gotta undermine him, I gotta cut him down, I gotta show him his place, I gotta put him in his place, I gotta get him fired somehow, that's Satan whipping you up. That's satanic prophesying of what you're gonna do to that person because you went to bed angry and now you're giving devil specific access to your mind to like torture you and to, in a sense, drive you mad about that person you're jealous with. And then you start throwing the spears. Demon-empowered spear throwing. So, let me see here. Now, all right, let me come back here. So he throws the spears at David. He eludes them twice. And then I want you to see what it says. Verse 12. Saul then was afraid of David because the Lord was with David, but had departed from Saul. So now he's throwing these spears. David's eluding them. And now fear and anxiety start taking place. So you try to kind of throw some spears at this new employee. He eludes them, and he's successful. Now you move into, you are fearful, you have anxiety. Are you going to lose your job? Are you going to lose your prestige? Are you going to, he seems kind of, or she, untouchable. Now, we come to two-faced trickery, or the frenemy. And this is, to me, this is Snow White with the, I have an apple for you, okay? From the wicked queen. So come down to verse 20. Now Saul's daughter, Michal, was in love with David. And when they told Saul about it, he was what? Pleased. Hey, that's nice that my daughter loves David. Talk about a frenemy, okay? I will, 21, verse 21, I will give her to him, he thought, so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So Saul said to David, now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. After he killed Goliath, he had the first opportunity, but that daughter wound up marrying someone else. Verse 22, then Saul ordered his attendants, speak to David privately and say, at least in my version it says, say, look, the king likes you. I like you, David. Forget the past of me throwing those 2 swords at you, or 2 spears, the spear at you twice. I actually like you, David. I would like for you to be my son-in-law. Man, the king's had a change of heart. He's, So they repeat it, verse 23. So the king likes you. He wants you to become his son-in-law. Wow, that's a great friend here. That's the apple. They reported these words to David, but David said, "Do you think it is a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I'm only a poor man and little known." You have to give a dowry to the father-in-law for his daughter. And David's like, "Man, I don't have any money. I'm poor. There's no way I could afford to marry the king's daughter." So verse 24, when Saul's servants told him what David had said, Saul replied, Oh, tell David not to worry about money. I tell you what, just tell David if he kills 100 Philistines, that will be payment for my daughter. But what is Saul actually thinking? Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. You with me? That's a frenemy all the way. That is a frenemy. So King Saul is, I like you, David. I want you to become my son-in-law. All I want you to do is kill 100 Philistines, but my money's on the Philistines. They're going to kill you and get rid of you once and for all. And then finally, David goes out and actually kills 200 Philistines. And verse 28, when Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and now he remained his enemy for the rest of his days. So now, King Saul and David start out as friends. But now, because of jealousy and envy, it goes to anger, jealousy, demon-inspired prophesying, demon-inspired spear throwing, fear and anxiety, trickery, pretending you're a frenemy, and then finally, it's very clear, Saul is all out his enemy now. In fact, over in chapter 19, for the third time, David becomes his son-in-law. They're having dinner one of these days. In verse 9 of chapter 19, but an evil spirit from the Lord came on Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand. While David was playing the lyre, Saul tried to pin him to the wall with his spear. But David eluded him as Saul drove the spear into the wall. That night, David made good his escape, and basically that's the end of David hanging out with his father-in-law anymore. David kind of finally realizes, this guy is not my friend. He is trying to kill me.